Hey, I'm Matt Rosenthal. I'm the CEO of Mindcore Technologies, and I have with me Matt Johnson, who is our Chief Information Security Officer, or CISO. And the reason we're recording this video is because we're speaking with you, or you've inquired about cybersecurity services, and we felt that you may be interested in learning more about the tools that we use to provide the services, such as pen testing, vulnerability scanning or vulnerability management, email security monitoring, network security monitoring or breach detection, a little bit about HIPAA compliance and how we handle that, our 24/7 SOC. So with that being said, we're going to keep the video to hopefully no more than 10 minutes. And I'm going to hand it over to Matt Johnson. Matt, why don't we start with pen testing? Talk about what it is, what we use to do it, what the process is.
Yeah, so pen testing, I always equate pen testing to breaking into your house. There's vulnerability assessments, which I say is like walking around, jiggling the locks, trying to open or seeing what windows are open. Pen testing is the actual, I found a lock that I can break into. Let me try to break into that lock and get in. So it's very similar. We've already, looked around your network. We know what's in there, and we're going to try to find ways to get into that network by using applications that we've custom written, plus applications that other people have written, scripts, by any means necessary that we can find a way into your network and really help you improve your security.
And just mention a couple of the key tools that I know that it changes from time to time because things
Yeah,
continue to improve and we switch tools, but what are we using right now?
yeah. I mean, so like most pen testers, hackers, we use a variety of tools. A lot of them are grouped in a program we call Kali Linux, which the bulk of our pen test team uses. It's basically a hacker playground. It's a operating system that's designed that has already has a lot of the tools built into it. So for like network mapping, we would use a tool like Nmap or Wireshark. Maybe something for doing some graphical links. There's a great tool called Maltego that you can put a domain name into, and it would build a nice graphical map of everything attached to that domain name, DNS entries, IP addresses, emails, etc. Uh, we have our choice of vulnerability analysis when we're using that tool. We have for like, if we're doing web scanning, we can use a tool called Nikto, which lets us do a lot of really good web application scanning, lets us kind of break into web applications and do those little fun things to get admin passwords and stuff.
Right. Perfect. And
And
like
then,
I
and
said,
then
we
my
do.
favorite tool name is called John the Ripper, which is basically a password cracker that we can just put on something and let it try to rip out passwords all day long.
Excellent. And we do change from time to time. We try to stay with cutting edge. Some of these are better than others.
Yep. And a lot of
Uh,
times the tools changed on the pen test too. Not every pen test is the same, so sometimes we have to use a different tool to attempt our break-in.
Excellent. Vulnerability scanning.
Mhm.
I know we use, I think you mentioned to me before we use Connect Secure for that,
Yeah,
right?
so reason a tool now called Connect Secure. What that let us do, it's a what we call continual vulnerability management. The days of doing one or two vulnerability scans a year are kind of over. You really want to be doing continual vulnerability scanning. So this lets us put a application on every single server, desktop, laptop, and that way we can every day, run one or two scans on those machines to make sure there's no outdated or vulnerable software. Um, that way you're not waiting 6 months for software that became vulnerable the day after your last vulnerability assessment. You're able to get a cadence and patch not just, operating systems, but Adobe Acrobat or, Microsoft Office or, Zoom, which, is vulnerable all the time. So
Or Spotify.
Spotify, yeah.
Everybody's got that installed. So we have pen testing as a key
Mhm.
service we offer. The vulnerability management is another
Yep.
key core service. The
Yep.
third one is email security monitoring. So we monitor whether it's Google or Office 365, we monitor the tenant. What program do we use for that? And talk about that
Yes.
service.
So we use a combination of a program called Lima Charlie, which lets us gather the information. But then our SOC team has written probably a little over 500 rules just for MS365 for various alerts. We look for things outside the country or outside the normal area they log into. Did someone turn MFA off? Or are they logging in New York in 1 second and 2 seconds later they're logging in LA? So like an unusual travel. So we look for things that, kind of help us, determine if an email account has been breached.
Perfect. Let's move on to, so this is one of the most important ones. It's the network security monitoring or breach detection tool. So I know we have that deployed everywhere in all
Yes.
of our clients. Talk about how that works and why it's so important.
Yeah, so why it's important is, you don't know what you don't know, and you want to make sure you want to monitor everything on your network. So it's much like with email monitoring, we use the same tool, Lima Charlie. It's an agent that we put on every desktop, laptop, server. It can actually go on mobile phones. And also we have, I think right now, 60 different API calls that we can do with cloud vendors, so we can send Microsoft into it. Sophos, SonicWall firewall logs, any type of firewall logs, any type of networking logs. We can load all that into this one particular tool. And once again, our SOC team, who writes rules all day long, has written a little over 1,000 rules for network detection and threat detection and looking for malware, ransomware. It also lets us, isolate machines off the network automatically. So if the tool sees something that it thinks is ransomware, malware, it will isolate that machine and kick it off the network so it can't infect anybody else. It has a lot of,
Right. So this is
we're building
critical
a lot of
because,
automation into it.
like you were saying, you don't know what you don't know. So
Right.
this is critical because if you have a breach, you don't know you have a breach. Your
Right.
antivirus isn't going to pick it up. So this
And we
tool will
learned
pick it
last
up.
year breaches are getting faster. We had one that was 7 hours after the initial detection. They started trying to ransomware, and I think another one was 4 hours after. So,
Yeah. Next is the this is pretty basic, but for endpoint protection, we use Sentinel-1.
right.
So I mean that's self-explanatory. It's antivirus, it's next generation antivirus, it's advanced threat protection. So we use Sentinel-1 for that. And we use KnowBe4, which right now is still the best product out there for the phishing, email security, and awareness training. So one aspect of it is the pre-programmed proactive fake phishing emails that get sent out. And then when somebody inevitably clicks on one of them, they get put into a training program, which begins to it gets harder and harder over time. So every few months, the system gets more difficult to detect these, so that we're training the end users to identify what a phishing email looks like, so
Hmm.
that hopefully they don't click on one. Um, the HIPAA compliance. Let's talk about that for a moment. So there are some key things when it comes to HIPAA compliance, but they also are
Right.
the same when it comes to the NIST checklist of best practices, NIST,
Right.
and insurance companies. I mean, they all have the same sets of standards and guidelines and best practices. HIPAA goes a little further, a little
Right.
more specific. Can you talk about how all these tools fit into those standards?
Yeah, I mean, so HIPAA standard, it has the HIPAA security rule, divided into three areas: administrative, physical, and technical. They're all called safeguards. So what you're looking at is some of the key things that are required. Risk assessment and management. Are you doing yearly risk analysis? Are you looking at what your risks are? And just because you have a risk doesn't mean you have to get rid of it, but you also have to know what it is so that you can document it, accept it, fix it, or plan for what will happen if that risk happens. Are you looking at access control, not just in your servers, but who can access information, especially PHI, encryption, which is fairly common now on most servers and Microsoft and email and everything else. But you want to make sure that if you're a HIPAA and already to be HIPAA compliant, that basically you're encrypting PHI, especially both in transit and at rest, what they call. So transit is when you're moving data, such as emails, file transfers. Rest basically when you're storing it. So anything in a database or a backup. The biggest thing that we do, and we've done a lot of these over the last couple of years, is definitely need an instant response plan and a way to report back. So, working with us, or we can create a custom crafted instant response plan, so that something does happen and there's any type of breach of PHI, we're able to start working with you immediately, and we have that plan that we can jump into and effectively implement for you. We talked about monitoring and auditing the logs. We do that with our network security. It's like an enhanced part of our network security for HIPAA, where we can really store even more logs and provide a lot more auditing for them. I know we do uh, data backup, which is, I think, not sure who you guys use, Matt, but I think it's Veeam, or we use Veeam.
Yeah, well, it depends what we're doing, but I know
Okay,
on
sure.
it could be Veeam, it could be Datto, it
Oh
could
yeah,
be
true.
some people use Barrack. Some of
It
our
can change
clients
from
want
time to time.
Barracuda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with that, data backup is, almost worthless without a disaster recovery plan. So making sure that, we write a custom disaster recovery plan for you that incorporates your data backup. Because that disaster recovery plan will also have testing in it and, knowing where the data is stored. We've done one recently where they had their backups, but they had them stored right next to the server that was caught on fire, actually. So no
Smart.
one was able to recover anything. And of course, HIPAA vulnerability management, which we've talked about, endpoint security through Sentinel-1, we've talked about. And then, of course, training and awareness, which I'm not sure if we talked about Know Before, which I think you
Yeah, we
just
did. We
did. Yeah.
talked about
So,
that.
yeah, those are the key
So
things that, for HIPAA.
so collectively, I mean, HIPAA is very specific, but this package and these services also are the core foundation of what you need for HIPAA compliance. And also just to mention that we have the 24/7 Security Operations Center. So
Correct.
there is always somebody looking at the alerts. There's always somebody that is addressing them as they come in. And on your side of the house, if the security team detects something, they kick it over to our side of the house so we can do containment and remediation.
Correct.
So it's full circle, we cover everything. And again, this video is intended to speak to people who are considering working with us and who may wonder what we're using, how we do it. And this isn't a super deep dive, but hopefully this was comprehensive enough to give you an idea of what we're doing and how we're doing it. So thank you for watching, and I hope this was helpful to you.
Yep. Thank you.